I'll discuss the first gun round of Spirit versus Passion Ukraine, pointing out what I wouldn't and would do in terms of positioning. Here, Spirit start by taking deep A main control. I wouldn't commit to holding this angle, but I do like the aspect of having deep control. As city side, I want to have control as deep as possible everywhere across the map in terms of information, because the alternative is not having deep control. The dream scenario for city would be if T's would be stuck in T-spawn and cities have control across their all option of exit points from there. They could continuously block them with smokes and molotovs. And when they cannot block them anymore, they could just fall back to the next position gradually from where they can safely spot for information. This way, they are running down the clock, which is in city's favor, and they also make T's have to account for all possible angles cities might be hiding in, which will waste even more time. By committing to this angle, he's rejecting the option of having a guaranteed block followed by a fallback in favor of a potential 1vx fight. I would also never take an even trade as city side when I have the alternative of having information. If there were 1 million cities against 1 million T's, the cities would win. That's because cities have to account for well-defined points on the map through which T's have to push through in order to have a chance of winning the round, because they want to plant the bomb, whereas T's have to account for a larger number of angles. Let's also see what's going on across the rest of the map. On B, Chopper and Svave are taking information, jiggering cave and ramp, so we have information on B. On mid, Donkey's current is smoke, but earlier he naded the smoke, so he knew at this point that nobody's out mid. And now Shiro can safely come here, knowing there's nobody crossing already, to take the angle with the op. So we have information mid, info across the whole B. Well, we do have info A. The difference is that he's committing to a fight, whereas his team is playing for info or committing with an op, which is safe. You can take a shot and fall back. And Donk is free to help across the map because they already have the entire information. Now I want to discuss what the T's are doing. All right, and before that, here you can notice Zontix is falling back. He didn't see anyone. He didn't hear anything. So my point is, if you have full control across the whole map and you had the option until now to choose any position in A main, why not choose the best position? There's always a best position in a given scenario. So by changing your position with no new information, it means you either realized your position was not the best or you don't know what you're doing. Here, okay, so here he changes his position, takes that information, sees them and falls back. Okay, and now he mollied based off of sound. What I would do here is jiggle and only molly if I see the enemies coming, either from there or from there. That's because if you hear sound across here and across here, but they don't pick, there's no reason to block them because they cannot commit and you're still safe. And if they are coming and you see them, you will win a few extra seconds by molling later. This will save you more time for the team to not have to change the structure that they already have, because having information is the best possible thing you can do as city side. And now, okay, so now they lost this information. And What I want to do when I lose information on a part of the map is either bring rotation there to have a better setup with no information, such that if the enemies commit, we have a setup on the side, or group together a city and push something. Ideally involve the guy who lost the information into the push, because the alternative would be playing retake. But here Shiro had an op, so what I would have done is, instead of involving a push with these two guys and rotation on middle, I would have just pushed S3 B ramp. The problem with pushing alone B ramp is because, well, the alternative is pushing S3 B ramp, which is stronger. Ideally, you want at every point in time as city to have information everywhere. If that's not possible, have a setup where you cannot have information and information in the rest of the places. And if that's not possible, group together with a pack and push something, and the rest actually the whole point was because they cannot have information, so the rest would have to play retake. Okay, so after getting this kill, I wouldn't push here because they can just play for information. And regarding Svev, he's currently holding the angle. I wouldn't hold the angle when I can jiggle for information. I want to take information at all points I can into the round and only make a stack or push based off of that information when there's no other option. Again, to run the clock down and to make the most educated choice later into the round based on information. I want to also show you what I would have done instead of zone ticks in aim main, how I would have blocked it. Alright, so he was deep A main and committed to that angle. Alright, so this was its position. He had a Molotov. What I would have done is play for a pixel angle here, and when seeing them, molly, see if they come to the molly, if not, fall back. At this point, you don't have a smoke or molly anymore. He didn't have a smoke. So right now he lost fast info on A, because if he does this, he cannot block if enemies are close and want to commit. And that's when I would have started pushing on B. Now, let's get back to the demo. And I want to lastly show you what I would have done as T side to play that round. The first thing I would do different here is, when committing in A main, I would have gone S3. Because it's stronger to go S3, you have more trade potential. Okay, and this is how I would have played it. After clearing A main, I would have left one guy alone in A main. I would have kept this guy holding B control. And one thing about holding something, I want to either play an angle where if enemies push, I always have a 1v1 fight. So by that I mean this. If you're holding this angle in the open and enemies push, after you get the first contact, they can pick you together. Whereas if you hold such an angle, you know, this kind of angle, only one guy can fight you at a time. Because if city push, they can push together. And that's why you want to isolate them. And the other thing is, you can also jiggle for information. And when you see somebody, stop fighting. You got the information, you can just hide. You can later retake that area where you're multiple guys with your team, or just completely leave it. So, going back into the strat. I would have had Jaxmo play this angle from here, holding 1v1s here. One guy here. And the rest three, I would take mid with them. So, smoke, smoke, and molly here. And what I would do is have 3 guys fade the donut smoke and have Jaxmo come to A main as well. When the smoke is fading, since this is a commit, when the smoke is fading, I would also, one of these guys have to smoke city. And then the donut will play first. And the way they play first is their buffing would be right side, so they can clear left side, so that these guys can pick and trade / help with nades. If there's somebody there and they have a molly, they can molly him. And then transition to left side, clear right side, when these guys can come here and trade as well. The way I decide how to play these rounds are based on some tables that I made for city and T side. I have general scenarios on how to play 5v5 all the way to 1v1s, both for city and T side, and I will link this in the description.